This is today's cyber news for October 2nd, 2025. You can also listen on the go at dailycybernews.com. OpenSSL shipped fixes for 3 problems touching certificate parsing, memory handling, and denial of service edges. None looks like a Heartbleed class meltdown on its own, but the combined surface is large because OpenSSL sits inside servers, containers, appliances, and embedded devices. Cloud images and base layers often lag upstream, which quietly extends exposure windows. Middle boxes, software development kits, and Internet of Things stacks may pin older versions, so downstream vendors need to recompile and push updates. Attack paths include crafted certificates to trigger parsing faults and traffic patterns that exhaust resources during renegotiation. The best practice is to update runtimes, rebuild images, verify with software bills of materials and handshake tests, and track vendor advisories for statically linked binaries you don't control. A flaw in an identity platform exposed OpenID Connect client secrets and token exchange paths, letting attackers impersonate trusted applications. The identifier is CVE 2025-59363. With stolen secrets, adversaries can mint valid-looking tokens, reach back-end APIs, and escalate into downstream software-as-a-service tenants tied to single sign-on. The risk jumps where organizations reused secrets across environments or skipped sender-constrained tokens. Help desks and automation bots wired through OAuth are attractive lateral targets. Vendor-side fixes and platform key rotations help, but customers still need to rotate their own app secrets and audit token logs for misuse. Enforce PKCE, prefer sender-constrained tokens like mutual TLS or Depop, and narrow OAuth scopes to only what the app truly needs. The airline breach widened to about 1.2 million customers and now includes identity documents, loyalty data, and itinerary details. Passport numbers and government ID fields create durable fraud because they pass stronger verification checks and support synthetic identity building. Travel histories also enable precise spear phishing and border-adjacent scams. Airlines are high-value targets. They aggregate rich personal data, payment tokens, and numerous partner integrations across hotels and rentals. As the data set circulates, expect cross-platform fraud attempts that reuse loyalty and itinerary facts. Individuals should consider fraud alerts, credit freezes, and, where possible, reissuance options for government IDs. Enterprises can add friction for travel-related social engineering by validating itinerary changes and loyalty redemptions through out-of-band channels before approving anything sensitive. An insurer disclosed a compromise involving about 1.5 million policyholders. The exposed data includes names, social security numbers, and policy details. These are among the most damaging leaks because social security numbers enable durable fraud, including credit applications and tax refund theft. With insurance context, phishing can be sharper and more believable. Regulators are expected to probe notification timelines and vendor oversight. Criminals will combine this data set with public records to build fuller profiles. For individuals, freezing credit files and enabling IRS identity protection pins are critical. Enterprises serving affected populations should consider long-term monitoring, not just 1 year of coverage, to reduce downstream fraud losses. Google Drive's desktop app is rolling out machine learning detection that pauses sync when it sees ransomware-style encryption. The goal is to prevent corrupted files from overwriting healthy cloud copies. Alerts guide users through restoring versions or clean recovery if encryption is confirmed. While not a replacement for endpoint defenses, this addresses the common problem of pushing damaged data upstream. Enterprises should test how this interacts with endpoint detection and backup systems and validate restore playbooks. Enforce least privilege on sync folders and pair this feature with immutable backups and egress alerts to strengthen resilience. Researchers are tracking a new Android banking Trojan named Cleopatra. It mixes overlay phishing with a hidden virtual network computing channel that gives attackers hands-on control of the device. That lets them bypass multi-factor challenges, change payee lists, and approve transfers in real time. The malware spreads through sideloaded apps and fake updates, and it abuses accessibility services to stay persistent. Early activity shows European targets, but the technique could spread quickly. Banks should expect adversaries to tune the Trojan per region. Individuals should stick to official app stores, block unknown sources, and ensure devices pass attestation checks before conducting high-risk transactions. A campaign known as Detour Dog manipulated DNS records for about 30,000 sites, redirecting visitors through attacker servers. Those servers injected JavaScript designed to steal credentials and autofill data. This approach bypasses server defenses because the compromise sits upstream at the registrar or resolver. The fallout includes account takeovers, customer trust erosion, and potential search engine penalties for affected domains. Remediation requires registrar resets, DNSC validation, and cleansing injected scripts from origin servers. Defenders should audit registrar accounts, apply registry locks if offered, and monitor for sudden DNS changes paired with script integrity alerts. This case illustrates how attackers abuse the web's plumbing to reach large numbers of users. Attackers exploited APIs in mile-site routers to send large volumes of smishing texts across Europe. These messages impersonated banks and parcel services. The abuse turned small business gateways into spam launchpads, shifting telecom charges to victims and damaging their reputation. Compromised devices usually had exposed management interfaces or default credentials still in use. Carriers noticed traffic spikes in short bursts, consistent with automation rather than human operators. Vendors and ISPs are pushing updates and filters, but local owners must lock devices down. That means patching firmware, closing remote admin, rotating API keys, and disabling SMS features if not needed. Rate limiting is another safeguard. A processing change in a major analytics platform caused some customers' telemetry to be ingested under the wrong tenant. That briefly mixed events between organizations and risks skewing dashboards, exports, and experiment results. Even a small percentage of mislabeled events can distort conversion funnels and audience segments in ways that drive bad decisions. Investigators are focusing on the transformation stage that maps metadata to tenant identifiers. The lesson is that multi-tenant observability depends on strict partitioning at each hop, not just at storage. Vendors are reprocessing affected batches and hardening validation on tenant IDs. Teams should treat late September reports as suspect until corrected and then rerun key analyses to avoid acting on polluted data. Windows 10 reaches end of life on October 14th, and unsupported machines will quickly accumulate unpatched bugs. Attackers historically target end-of-life platforms with reliable exploit chains, knowing that patching is hard or impossible. Many organizations keep a long tail of kiosks, lab gear, and vendor-managed boxes that resist upgrades. Those islands become stepping stones for lateral movement into modern fleets. Expect commodity botnets to add Windows 10 exploits to initial access routines later this quarter. Older drivers and pinned software in manufacturing and healthcare will complicate migrations. The best moves now are tight network segmentation, blocking interactive logons, and accelerating hardware refresh where Windows 11 isn't feasible. New academic work, dubbed Wiretap, shows a side-channel method that can recover ECDSA attestation keys from Intel SGX on certain DDR4 setups. The attack relies on subtle timing and electrical effects to infer operations inside the enclave. The lab conditions are specialized, but the result pressures any design that assumes enclave confidentiality against a determined local adversary. If attestation keys leak, attackers could forge enclave identities, weakening remote trust in SGX-backed services. Cloud providers had already limited SGX due to earlier side channels, and this adds more weight to retire or re-architect. Mitigations include microcode, memory controller settings, and shifts to trusted execution environments with different threat models. A new direction from UK authorities pushes a platform vendor to provide lawful access to iCloud device backups. That reignites the encryption backdoor debate. The vendor argues that any exceptional access mechanism weakens end-to-end protections for everyone and invites copycat demands globally. Privacy advocates warn about fragmentation as features differ by jurisdiction. Enterprises that rely on hardened iOS baselines worry about downstream effects on data at rest guarantees and insider threat assumptions. The legal process will test how far platform vendors must bend to policy pressure without alienating users. Multinationals face mismatched rules as devices move across borders. Practical steps include cataloging what data actually enters cloud backups and layering workspace encryption independent of platform backup scopes. Leaders at Signal reiterated that client-side scanning or content filters would break the security of end-to-end encrypted messaging. Even scanning before encryption creates models attackers can probe and evade, and it risks repurposing beyond narrow child safety goals. EU lawmakers are still arguing about whether scanning can be targeted without mass surveillance effects. For enterprises, weaker consumer encryption raises the risk of data interception on dual-use devices and personal apps. The debate also muddies compliance planning in regulated sectors that depend on strong cryptography. Now's a good time to reaffirm policies requiring true end-to-end tools for sensitive communications and to track the legislative text for carve-outs that could affect corporate use. The open-source Android app catalog F-Droid is warning that Google's new developer ID requirements could sideline volunteer maintainers. Many security and privacy tools are maintained by individuals who can't or won't provide government-backed IDs, especially in restrictive regions. That risks chilling updates, slowing patch delivery, and narrowing the pool of defensive apps available outside the Play Store. Reproducible builds also get more complicated when signing identities change. For enterprises that allow limited sideloading, this may mean fewer vetted tools. Teams should review their mobile governance and decide whether to keep F-Droid as an approved source. Internal mirrors for critical open-source tools are worth considering. Ukraine's Cyber Emergency Response Team reported a backdoor called CABINETRAT delivered through XL add-ins. The infection chain used malicious XLL files packed inside zips, which were then shared over Signal Messenger. Once opened, the add-in planted a backdoor capable of credential theft and persistence. This shows how attackers can abuse trusted messengers to deliver executables, bypassing email defenses. Many organizations still allow XLLs for legacy workflows, which widens the attack surface. A strong defense is blocking XLLs outright, restricting add-ins to signed catalogs, and treating messenger downloads with the same caution as email attachments. Mandiant is tracking a group known as UNC 6040 that's targeting Salesforce organizations with social engineering. Attackers impersonate customers in support calls to request access resets or MFA changes. Once inside, they harvest tokens, API keys, and integration secrets that connect to downstream SaaS and data lakes. The campaigns work because they exploit urgency and human trust at help desks. Mandiant is sharing playbooks for caller verification and escalation gates. Organizations should require out-of-band callbacks, restrict support role permissions, and audit OAuth apps for minimal scope to blunt these tactics. Apple patched a medium-severity bug in its FontParser library. The identifier is CVE 2025-43400. The flaw could be triggered by malicious documents, web content, or messages. While not high severity yet, font parsing bugs are often stepping stones in attack chains because they touch browsers, previewers, and messaging apps. Mixed update levels across fleets give attackers windows to test exploit kits. The clear action is to prioritize patch deployment, enforce rapid security responses where supported, and limit legacy devices' access to high-risk services until updates are applied. A new report from Bitdefender highlights hidden breaches and growing attack surfaces across mid-market environments. Investigators found that many organizations underestimate dwell time and fail to track identity abuse, focusing instead on traditional malware. Asset creep, shadow SaaS, untracked third-party apps, and cloud sprawl keeps outpacing inventory controls. Even when leaders see risk dashboards, translating those into practical fixes is uneven. The report points toward identity governance, attack surface management, and automated containment as necessary counterweights. Teams should baseline identity flows, adopt just-in-time elevation, and reconcile SaaS inventories against internal identity and HR systems for accuracy. That's the BareMetalCyber Daily Brief for October 2nd, 2025. For more, visit BareMetalCyber.com and listen daily at dailycybernews.com. Thanks for listening. We're back tomorrow.